Alright, we just got a few more left. Number 11 here. I have 2k cubed plus 16k squared plus 3k plus 24. This is a factor by grouping problem. And the thing that gives it away is that this has 4 terms. So I'm going to group together terms that have things in common. Usually the first two and then the last two. So here the first two, I can pull out a 2k squared, which is going to leave me with a k plus 8. And then the last two terms here, I can pull out a 3, which leaves me with a k plus 8. You know you did this correctly when these two terms match. They have to match in order to do factor by grouping. And I will explain why in a second. Alright, so what you're going to do is you're going to group together the 2k squared plus 3, and then the k plus 8. Now, a lot of people get confused. How do the k plus 8 combine down to a single k plus 8? Why isn't it k plus 8 squared, for example? Well, you have to go back to thinking about how you first learned how to distribute problems like this, two-termed problems. So to do that, you would always take this first term and you'd multiply it by this k and then by the 8. And then you took the second term here, 3, and you multiplied that by the k and the 8. So you had 2k squared and you multiplied it by the k and the 8. And then you took the 3 and multiplied it by the k and the 8. Notice that's the exact same as this. Alright, number 12. Again, another factor by grouping, because I have 4 terms, so I know that I should group them to solve this problem. So I'm going to pull out a 2x squared here, which leaves me with an x plus 6. And now this one's a little tricky because you have a negative here. If this first term is negative, then you should pull out a negative. So I'm going to pull out a negative 5 and get x plus 6. Again, make sure that these two factors are the same. If you did not pull out a negative, if you had left it there, so let's say you made this a plus 5, you'd have negative x minus 6. But you'd still have the 2x squared and the x plus 6 over here. Those don't match. And so that's how you know you should probably go back, pull the negative out first, and then that way your factors match. Alright, so now I'm going to combine these terms here. 2x squared minus 5, and the x plus 6. Alright, so again, think about when you first learned how to distribute these binomials. You took 2x squared, and you just multiplied it by the x and then the 6. So you got something like this. And then you took your negative 5 and multiplied it by an x and a 6, which looks like this. Which, like I said, is exactly what we started with. So that's how it condenses back down to your final answer. Which, this is your final answer. And this is your final answer for that problem. Alright, last two problems. I have 4x squared minus 35x minus 50. This is not a factor by grouping problem because I don't have 4 terms. There are no common factors that I could take out. This 4 and this 50 I could take a 2 out of, but you can't take a 2 out of this 35 here. So nothing in common to take out there. I don't have a difference of squares. Okay, difference of squares only has 2 terms. That's not true in this case. And then even perfect squares. 4 is a perfect square, but 50 is not. So I'm not using that either. So what I have is just a regular old polynomial, but it has a coefficient that's not 1. And so the easiest way to tackle that is to actually turn it into a factor by grouping problem. And how we're going to do that is take a times c, which is going to give me negative 200, and I'm going to break that down, keeping in mind what my b value is, which is negative 35. So I could have negative 20 and positive 10, negative 10, positive 20, negative 40 and positive 5, negative 5 and positive 40. Negative 40 and positive 5 is going to give me that negative 35b value that I want. So what I do is I break down that negative 35 into a negative 40 plus a positive 5. And I keep everything else the same. And then from there, I can do factor by grouping. So I'm going to put these two together. And these two. And you'll see my x minus 10s match. So I can condense this back down. And bam, there we go. There's our answer. I'm going to do the same thing here on 14. Take a times c, so 9 times 8 is negative 72. I'm going to go ahead and break that down. Negative 8 and 9. Negative 9 and 8. Then I have negative 12, 6, negative 6, and 12. So I need to figure out which of these factors are going to add to a negative 6, which is going to be these two right here. So 9p squared, that negative 6p, I'm going to break into negative 12p plus 6p and minus 8. And then I can factor here. This has a 3p in common, which leaves me with 3p minus 4. Plot of 2, 3p minus 4. These match. And bam, there you go. There's your answer. Hopefully that was helpful. We did a lot of different types of factoring problems and covered everything. If you have any questions, let me know.